Everyone. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. As you all should be aware, this is part of the Campus Life Skills series. And today I'm going to be talking about bystander intervention. So how you can help others, how you can intervene safely, and all the strategies that you need to know to make an informed decision of whether or not you want to help someone. Before we do get into the content, I just wanted to kind of tell you a little bit about me. So my name is Jake Burns. I am the program coordinator in the Dean of Students office. Essentially, my job is to assist students in distress and provide education. Sorry, that's my cat here. And to provide education through training and outreach to faculty, staff, and students. So with that said, we'll go ahead and get started. Oops, someone's joining. Welcome, newcomers. You haven't missed anything. We're going to go ahead and get started now. Okay, so the ground rules, oops. Sorry, I'm getting a private message. I believe I'm in presentation view. Can you all see the whole presentation, or do you see the presenter view?
Presenter.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much. 1 second, I'll go ahead and get that fixed.
That's better.
Perfect. All right. All right, y'all. So I want to go over the ground rules. Essentially, what you need to know about today is that this is a safe and judgment-free environment. If any of y'all choose to share any information or stories or perspectives today, I just want you to know that I'll be listening without judgment, and you all should do the same. We all come from different places, different backgrounds. We all have different worldviews. So the goal today is to just get a better understanding of our level of awareness and do whatever we can to make sure that you walk away knowing some different skills to safely intervene. I also ask that you offer honest and respectful dialogue. So if someone does express different views than your own, just try to approach that situation with care and respect. If you do participate, I believe you'll get the most out of the presentation today. But again, it is not required for you to speak every time I ask a question or anything like that. So do whatever you're comfortable with. If you do become uncomfortable by any of the content that's discussed here today, feel free to step away for a moment, to mute me, whatever works best for you. We do talk about some difficult topics in this presentation, including dating violence and sexual violence. So again, if you do feel uncomfortable at any time, please do feel free to step away. I will give you a little bit of a warning when we discuss topics that are related to sexual violence. All right. All right, so on the screen here, you see some definitions. So this is really mostly common knowledge, but if there was any misunderstanding of what a bystander or an active bystander or a passive bystander is, then this information is definitely beneficial to you. So essentially, a bystander is any person who witnesses something, and then they have an opportunity to make the decision of whether or not they want to act or not act. Right? So you saw something happen. That's a bystander. Now, an active bystander is someone who has that instance happen, but then they make the conscious decision to actually go and provide assistance to the person who they believe to be a victim. A passive bystander is someone who makes the choice not to assist. And there could be many reasons why that person chose not to assist. And we'll talk about that a little bit more today. So why does bystander intervention matter? Bystander intervention is about empowering all members, sorry about that, is about empowering all members of our community to speak up and to challenge things like gender inequality, drivers of abuse. We want to make sure that we are trying to address those situations in appropriate ways. So this training will provide you some skills with how to do that. Bystander intervention is also all about preventing more violence from occurring and helping folks who have been affected find their own way to get assistance and bystander intervention is also important because you have the opportunity to make an impact and to make a difference in everyday people's lives. So some students don't really understand why bystander intervention is really, really necessary, right? So the statistics you see here on the screen are from this year's Center for Disease Control's study on sexual violence. So sexual violence trends in the United States. So, you may be somewhat familiar with these statistics. These are somewhat commonly known, especially if you've attended some of the other educational events around campus. But if this is maybe all new content to you, or if maybe you're new to the university system, it's going to be kind of surprising. Essentially, what you should know is that sexual violence, it is very frequent. More than 1 in 3 women have experienced some form of sexual violence in their lifetime, and more than 1 in 4 men have experienced sexual violence in their lifetime. Now, a lesser number of individuals have actually experienced sexual assault, but it is still a huge issue. And, there's a lot of differences. Sexual violence is kind of the more general term, and it does not include, it kind of is an umbrella term, so it includes everything, right? But specifically for instances of penetration, so sexual assault, that is included in the 1 in 5 number and the 1 in 38 men. So 1 in 38 men have experienced sexual assault in their lifetime. 1 in 3 women have experienced sexual assault in their lifetime. And then 1 in 14 men have experienced what's called forced to penetrate sexual assault. And that's when they were made to penetrate someone without their consent. So hopefully these data trends kind of show you the scope of this big issue in our society, and it might encourage you to speak up or to act when you notice that someone might be at risk of becoming a survivor of sexual violence. So I think it's important, before we go kind of more forward, to understand why we help others. So oftentimes we help others because it's kind of tied to us, right? Our belief system, our values, things we hold dear, or things that we learn growing up, right? So some of us have this kind of innate belief that we should help others or address issues. Others of us have, lots of empathy for others. We have a passion for providing help or service to others, right? We're kind of altruistic. So that could be a motivating factor. Also, sometimes we just want to have a better understanding of things in our society. Maybe we want to learn about a specific issue and its impact on people. So we want to pay more attention to folks struggling with domestic violence, right? And so we go and we learn more about that, and then we see those things in our society, and we see opportunity to intervene and help them. Sometimes we also may seek this information or want to help others because we want to understand how we can prevent instances like this from occurring in the future, right? We have maybe experienced it ourselves, or we know someone who's experienced it, and we feel motivated to help others because we know that we don't want them to experience it too. Some folks want to learn more about bystander intervention or to assist others through bystander intervention for personal development purposes, right? So they want to either gain experience dealing with difficult situations or topics or crises, or to challenge their skills and to get a better understanding of their own strengths and weaknesses. Others help others because they care about their community. They have a sense of obligation to their specific community, or the community of someone that they truly hold dear. And they want to advocate for folks in that community to improve their lives. And the last one would be esteem enhancement, which is to essentially make one feel like their life has more meaning, or to feel needed, or to ignore pressures or stressors in their own life. So sometimes we help others because we want to ignore our own problems, or because our problems are a big strain or pressure on us, and so we want to try to not focus on those things and instead just help other people. You might have friends who kind of do a lot of self-sacrificing, right? Or they help others at the expense of their own emotional sanity or well-being. and you see them kind of struggling, and you want to make sure that they're taking some time for themselves. So some people help others just to feel better about themselves. So if you have a friend like that, encourage them to keep helping people, but also encourage them to take care of themselves. So now that we have an understanding of why people help, I want to give you some idea of what motivates people to help. So these are called individual variables. So there are many different variables that influence helping. But first, I think it's best to understand how we as an individual have the potential to assist. So if you have skills or have this kind of like high sense of confidence, then you're actually more likely to intervene, right? If you feel confident in your ability to help another person, then when something bad happens, you can be like, oh, I've got this. I'm gonna go help that person. Or if you, have different like specific sets of skills, like if you work as a social worker, right? And you have experience de-escalating situations because of your studies or because of your time, actually working, then you're going to use those skills likely to help others when situations arise that require your intervention. Maybe you have a strong sense of social responsibility, or you're just very altruistic. Maybe you put others before yourself all the time. And so helping others, it seems easy to you. Or maybe, like I said before, helping people is just kind of what you do. It's who you are. It's rooted in your belief system, or in your morals, or however you were raised. Right? Those things really do impact how or why we help others. There's also individual barriers that might influence you not to help. So an example of that would be, if you have biases against certain people, you're less likely to help those folks, but more likely to help folks that maybe you can identify with. So these things don't always influence helping. Sometimes they can also serve as a barrier. So additional variables that influence helping are situational variables. Situational variables are actually the most predictive of whether or not someone will help. So if the incident is small, or potential interveners think that it's kind of an easy fix, then perhaps they're more likely to help. Or maybe if it's a huge crisis and there is a perceived need for immediate assistance, someone is also more likely to help. Now, again, the individual variables definitely play a role in your decision making. So when we get to situational, right, if you don't have a whole lot of confidence or any skills, you might be looking at a situation that's kind of a crisis and be like, well, that's not me.
Question?
Yeah, absolutely.
How long is this?
How long is this presentation? It's about 60 minutes. Okay. All right. So similarly, if a person, so if a person thinks that there is little to no cost of intervention, then they're more likely to take action. So if you're like, well, my personal safety isn't at risk here. I know that, I can assist this person without any harm coming to me. So of course they feel comfortable intervening. That's great. But sometimes the cost of intervention is kind of too much, right? It outweighs the benefit of helping that person. You may really want to help, but you may fear for your imminent safety. And it's okay to not help someone if you're like, well, I don't want to get hurt. I can't, go to the hospital and pay for this because I don't have the greatest health insurance, right? We'll talk a little bit more of when it's okay to not help a little bit later. Other things like culture, like your culture or the social influences matter too. So a situation that occurs, within the United States could be vastly different than a situation that's the exact same that happens in a different country. So it's really important to kind of know, the rules around you, the social norms. Knowing that information can really help you if you are going to make the decision to intervene. I think probably the biggest thing about situational variables that actually matters is the number of people who are present in the situation, so around the situation. So this is the biggest predictor among all situational factors that actually influences helping. And we'll get into that in just a moment after we clear out these victim variables. So victim variables are essentially anything that has to do with the person who's being harmed or that we perceive as being harmed. So, you know, if I am a wealthy person, I'm more likely to help someone who's also wealthy. And I'm statistically less likely to help someone who is poor or who looks like they don't necessarily fit in with my group. The same really goes with other identifying factors such as your gender, your race, your identity, your culture, any of those things, right? I'm more likely to help someone who looks like me as opposed to someone who does not. Statistically, that's what you know, many studies about bystander intervention show us. Let's see, we're also more likely to help folks who we know as opposed to strangers. So that's why, you know, when a friend's having a rough time or has had some serious incident happen, you kind of rush to go help them because you care about them. Whereas if you kind of see a stranger kind of struggling for change on the street, oftentimes we look the other way because we're like, well, you know, I don't know that person. It's not really my problem. And another big factor about you know, intervening is whether or not that person is actually going to accept the assistance. Sometimes, and I'm sure we've all experienced it, we don't always know when a person is going to be open to our help. Sometimes we want to assist them and we have the best intentions, but that person just refuses that to accept that help. And in those instances, we should really recommend that they do seek assistance, even if it isn't from us. But sometimes we just have to step away and accept that some people do not want our help. All right, so now we're going to watch a brief video about why we don't help.
Plays like this street in New York City. If you were unfortunate enough to be the victim of a crime or taken ill unexpectedly, you might think that surrounded by all these people, someone would intervene. After all, isn't there safety in numbers? Psychologists say no. Research suggests that often a victim is less likely to receive assistance when surrounded by a group rather than a single bystander. When people are in a crowd, it's easier to pass the buck. It's what psychologists call the diffusion of responsibility. Liverpool Street Station in London, a busy thoroughfare for commuters. Unknown to these passers-by, Peter is an actor. As part of an experiment on bystander apathy, he's pretending to be ill.
Help! Help!
How long before he gets help?
Please, somebody. Help! Help me, son. Please help me.
Helping would be inconvenient or even risky. He lies there for more than 20 minutes and no one raises an eyebrow.
Please, somebody help me.
It's always very distressing to watch situations like this where people are obviously suffering and no one's actually helping them. But what we have here is two conflicting rules. One is the rule that we ought to help, and the other is the rule that we ought to do what everybody else is doing. And here you have effectively a group of strangers who are exerting the pressure not to intervene, not to help. And it's very difficult to rebel.
Ruth, another actor, takes Peter's place. How long before she receives help? Four minutes later, and 34 people have passed without stopping.
Well, people don't really want to know. They just haven't got the time. Well, they have got the time, they just don't want to get involved.
Unwittingly, these strangers have silently formed a temporary group with a rule: don't get involved. They're afraid to stand out from the crowd and won't take action if no one else does. This woman has clearly spotted Ruth, but she conforms to the rule and does nothing. Watch what happens, though, when someone... someone else helps.
You alright? You alright?
Yes, thank you.
Sure, you look a bit clicky, you know what I mean?
She suddenly finds herself in a different group with a new rule: to help.
You want to sit up? You alright? Yeah. Yes, you are.
First I thought she was dead. Then I sort of checked to see if she was breathing or not. And I looked around and I couldn't believe that no one had noticed her because there was a bloke sat there just absorbed in reading a newspaper.
This time, Peter's dressed as a respectable gentleman. Now that his dress is in keeping with those around him, how long before he's rescued?
Hello, sir. How are you today?
I'm all right.
6 seconds. She even calls him sir, and suddenly everyone's a good Samaritan.
Do you suffer from epilepsy?
No.
Why you're lying on the floor in the rain?
Because he's part of the right group. Everyone wants to help.
I would just hate to be in his position of feeling ill and nobody helping and walking past, so we'd just like to check that he was okay.
All right, so after watching that video, what are some things that you noticed?
They choose not to interact with any other people until they saw like a guy with a super nice suit. So, and then they decided like very quickly that it's like, are you okay?
Absolutely. So the gentleman at the very beginning was dressed in kind of shabby clothing. He was kind of meant to look homeless, or at least very poor. And then the woman was kind of like moderately dressed, and people still didn't really help out very soon, at least, right? You had the one woman who was just kind of staring at her and was like, well, I thought she was dead. And in my head, I'm like, well, then you'd think maybe you'd kind of go address it a little sooner. But she kind of waited until the construction worker, reached out for help. So it kind of shows you that when people see someone else helping, they understand that it's okay to offer assistance themselves. So if you're in situations like this, you can always delegate the situation to another person or enlist the help of others. Like the woman kind of came along with the construction man. But there's potential for you to encourage those other folks around you, if there's other people in your vicinity, to assist in those situations. What's another thing we noticed about this video? See in the chat here, definitely how fast they came to the guy's attention after he had changed. Absolutely, yeah, it was the same guy in different clothes. They helped him in like 6 or 7 seconds. Any other comments about this video before we move forward? All right. So what we saw in this video was the bystander effect. Okay, so this is the tendency for people to not intervene in situations when others are present. Others may witness concerning behaviors, but they just kind of fail to act, right? They might be like, well, that's really, really concerning, or wow, that person really looks like they need help. But ultimately they just walk away because they think someone else is going to handle it. So this is called the diffusion of responsibility. They just think that, someone else is either better equipped or in a higher place of authority, or perhaps has a relationship with the person who is going to assist, who is going through the difficult situation, right? So people walking past the woman was like, well, I don't know her. Someone else is probably going to help her. I mean, look, she's like laying in a public place. Of course, someone's going to help her. But the reality is most people are having those same thoughts. They're walking by assuming someone else is going to help. And what happens is that no one actually provides the help. There was a situation that's kind of well known. There was also like reenacted on Law and Order SVU, for those of you Law and Order fans. And there was a situation with Jean Cleary. There was a woman who was repeatedly assaulted in a visible location, and no one in the vicinity was reaching out for assistance. No one called the police. They all just assumed someone else would. And if that person would have received assistance sooner because someone called the police, then that person may have been alive. But ultimately, that's not what happened. So we want to make sure that anytime there's an opportunity for us to intervene, even if it's simply by calling the police, that we do that, because that should be the bare minimum, right? If we have a suspicion that something bad is happening, then we should make sure that we do our best to, alert someone who can help if we ourselves cannot do it. So the reason why we don't often assist with others is because we just conform to this kind of idea that we should mind our own business. How many times as a kid were you told, oh, don't touch that, or don't worry about that person, that's not our business, right? I mean, I can't speak for everyone, but for me, this was something that was regularly reinforced as, oh, well, that's not our problem, just ignore it, someone else will help. But that's not the reality that we live in. Right? People struggle and they need help. So don't conform to this idea that everyone should just mind their own business. People generally underestimate the extent of others' concerns for other people. This is called pluralistic ignorance. So don't assume that someone else is going to go help someone, right? Make the decision to go help yourself. Or, like I said before, enlist the help of others, so it's not just you who has to intervene. Sometimes situations, they can be really ambiguous, right? So ambiguity, for those of you who may not know, it's just when something is kind of unclear, right? You're not really sure about something. So in bystander intervention, if a problem is unclear, right? So if you're not really sure if this is an emergency or maybe it's not a problem at all, there's some things that you should do to resolve ambiguity. Does anyone have any idea of what you can do to resolve ambiguity?
Asking?
Yeah, absolutely. Asking. You could ask others around you if they think that a person needs help, or you could go up and ask the person, right, if it's safe to do so. Hey, do you need help? Are you okay? You could look around, right? Just, you don't even have to ask anyone. Look around and see if other people are also observing what you're observing. See their face. Do they look really concerned? Do they have their phones out? Are they trying to record it, right? And like I said, if all else fails, you can just go check in with that person if it's safe to do so. Asking, are you okay? Do you want my help? So yeah, ask the person, ask the people around you, ask a friend that you're with, ask someone, or just watch a little bit longer. Oftentimes when we spend some time just kind of spectating the world around us, we notice a lot of things. That's why a lot of people like to people watch. So definitely just find some way to get more information if you're not really sure if something's going wrong. You'll quickly understand if something's an issue or if something's not, just by checking in with the people around you. So this is kind of similar to being a passive bystander, but it's a little bit different. So willful neglect is when there are times where a person knows that there is an issue, but they willfully look the other way or cover it up because they either don't like the person who's being harmed, because it doesn't benefit them to help, right? Like it doesn't directly benefit them. Like, I'm not going to go help this person because I'm not going to get a promotion if they're still going to be in this job. So I don't want to help them because I don't want them here, right? So that's wrong. That's willfully, like if you willfully choose to not help someone so it hurts them in some other way, that's not okay. And now with that understanding of willful neglect, I think it's just important to kind of differentiate that this is not the same phenomenon as when someone witnesses a problem but fails to act because they don't either know what to do, because they're frozen, because out of fear, or because they're unwilling to get involved due to either a past bad experience or something related to their identity, right? And we're gonna watch a video right now, and then we'll discuss a little bit afterwards.
can't believe you abandoned a 3-year-old.
I think she was 4.
You monster.
If you watch closely, you can actually see her tiny spirit being crushed. Faith in humanity? No faith in humanity. Faith in humanity? No faith in humanity. That is how serial killers are born.
Okay, look, I know it looks bad, but that is a little white girl, and as a black man...
No!
No! You do not get to play the race card today. Not with that.
Sorry I'm late. There was a little snowflake on the elevator, so I had to take the stairs.
Me too.
Careful, Dre. Someone's out there setting traps.
I don't understand. Why are you two so afraid of a baby?
We don't have the luxury of being helpful because we're instantly seen as threats.
Well, that's just common sense.
I see any adult male as a threat.
The point is, we can't get away with half the stuff that you guys do.
Look, sorry I'm late, boss. There's a little white girl in the elevator. Almost had me. I saw my freedom flash right before my eyes.
So some of my co-workers didn't get it, but I knew my family would.
I married a monster.
To be fair, as a black man, we can never be too careful.
I remember my first little white girl in an elevator. Well, did the right thing, son. Proud of you.
You're proud of him?
Damn proud.
Okay, this is insane. What do you think would have happened if you'd helped the little white girl?
I'm gonna help you find your mom, okay? All right, do you know what floor she's on?
So, Andre, what were your plans here today?
No, okay, I get it. You had to be guarded to survive the NWA 80s, but it is Drake Summer 16. You don't have to be guarded anymore.
Whatever. All right, I'm not gonna let you take this away from me. Pops is proud of you.
Damn proud.
And that's what...
All right, so I know that this is kind of a difficult topic for some to discuss, so if you don't feel comfortable discussing this topic, you don't need to. It's totally okay. Yes, the show is Blackish. Lots of seasons. There's even like some spin-offs, so if you enjoyed that, you know, I'm not trying to sell you the show, but
Question, is it on Netflix?
I'm not sure if it's on Netflix. I want to say it's probably on Hulu, but I couldn't tell you. Yeah, it looks like Hulu. Anyway, so does anybody have any immediate thoughts after watching this video?
I thought it was interesting. Oh, sorry.
I think it's interesting as it shows that some people still, like some races still hold grudges.
Okay, do you mind expanding a little bit more, if you feel comfortable?
Well, for example, like how black people still hold grudges against white people. For like things like such as segregation, racism.
Okay.
The list can go on.
Yeah, so I hear your perspective. What I would say to that is, so I don't know that this is a depiction of any type of people feeling some type of way towards white people specifically, right? What the issue here is that these men feel that because historically Black men have been identified erroneously as culprits of crimes, that they have a concern about, even in 2016 when this film or when this video was shown, that you know, this is a huge issue in our society. People often are mistaken as victims, or I'm sorry, as perpetrators of crimes, even though they weren't. So I'm going to put you on mute if you interrupt me for just hold on one second. I'll give you an opportunity to continue, but I just wanted to kind of finish my point. So this is a huge issue in our society, any way you slice it. So in this video, what you're seeing is this gentleman is afraid for his own personal safety to intervene due to the societal perception that a Black man is somehow dangerous or violent or criminal. So as you saw in the video, there was a total of four black men who shared this sentiment, right? You have the three gentlemen in the place of business, and then you had his father who had his own experience the same. So, we can have different perspectives of why these things occur, but in this instance, in this video, that is the point that's trying to be put across. It's not that they're specifically against or hold a grudge against white people. That's not at all the case. This gentleman was feeling unsure about his personal safety if he helped this young white girl who was unaccompanied, because of the historic perception of black men as criminals. So, definitely don't want to stereotype at all, but I don't think that is what the video is trying to put across. But I would be happy to open it up to any other folks who maybe had a similar or different perspective. There was another voice. I don't want to call you out or put you on the spot, but what's your perspective?
I think it was me. Hi, everyone. I thought that the video was most interesting towards the end where, I don't know the character's name, but when he shows that, like, oh, if he would have intervened with the little girl, that, like, a news reporter would have showed up and they would have, like, automatically put slander to his name. And I thought that was, relatable, because usually that's what happens. It's social media that kind of jumps head first, and without even knowing all the facts, they kind of just put out what they think they know. And I think that that's what all of them were relating to in that way, where they were like, yeah, we're not going to take any chances.
Yeah, I think that the assumption of guilt, right? Like, many people just assume that a person is guilty, sometimes based off the way they look, sometimes based on the way they act, sometimes based off of past behaviors that person has demonstrated, right? So many of us make assumptions, and sometimes we assume others' guilt, right? Now, I did say I would provide an opportunity for the other gentleman. I didn't get your name, but if you wanted to, provide some more of your viewpoint, I'm happy to provide you that opportunity. All right, so we'll go ahead and move forward, but I hope that you all understand that in this instance, this was not willful neglect, right? Andre, the character here, you see his face, Andre was afraid for his personal safety. So in instances where you're afraid for your personal safety, or you're afraid of being misinterpreted as the person who is guilty, right, as the perpetrator, then it's okay to step away. There was an instance in a mall maybe 2 years ago where a black security officer was trying to de-escalate a situation. There was a mall shooting, and the gentleman tried to de-escalate the situation and ended up getting killed by police because they thought he was the aggressor, but he was a black security guard. So, this happens fairly regularly in our society. You don't have to agree with it, but, statistics do disagree. We have documented evidence that these things do occur. So it does occur. And so hopefully you have a better understanding of willful neglect and when it's okay to not intervene. So we just looked at how race or identity could be, an inhibitor to intervention. Can we think of any other social or cultural identifiers that either may motivate or inhibit someone's ability to assist?
Would religion be one?
Okay, religion certainly could be one, right? Maybe someone is in an area that is predominantly not the same religion that they are, right? Maybe it's a very religious place. Maybe they're traveling abroad, right? And maybe they're afraid of being persecuted for their religion, right? Maybe they'll be misperceived as, the person who's trying to do harm, if it's a very divided area, or if those people hold prejudice over someone with your religious affiliation. Or perhaps, we could look at America, right? Someone who maybe is well-meaning. So I'll give you a little bit of background. So I'm from Davenport, Iowa. It's a very small town. And I'll give you an instance of a situation that happened in my high school. So we had about 2 students who identified as Muslim. And there was an instance where they were walking through the school late at night, and a school security officer believed that they were there, but they shouldn't have been. And so he had a hyper-aggressive approach to these two Muslim women who were in the school after hours. They were actually there for a school gathering, but the security officer didn't know that. He misperceived the situation. And so he had a hyper-aggressive, approach to these women, right? And it was because of what they looked like, right? Or because of their religion, or even perceived religion. So there are definitely things that might inhibit helping, but in other instances that might be a benefit, right? So if you are in a predominantly, an area that is predominantly the same religion than you are, you could feel more confident knowing that the other folks around you have the same morals or values that you do. So that could be a good example. Other examples would include, those that you see on the screen. So, if let's go with like body size or shape, right? So if you are a very big person, maybe you feel more comfortable intervening in a situation that's maybe like a physical fight, right? You have two people who are fighting each other, on school grounds or in a bar or wherever, and you're like, well, I'm a big person. I can get right in there and I can, separate them. Or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe you're a very kind of tiny or frail person and you're like, well, I want to help diffuse the situation, but I'm going to use my words because I can't get in the middle of those two people. What are you talking about? I'll get killed. I don't want to hurt myself. So, it could be an inhibitor. It could be a motivator, right? It all just kind of depends on you as the individual. For me as a white man, I can go into spaces and maybe not have so much fear, kind of like how Andre did in the video, about helping people. I would feel comfortable going into that elevator and helping that little girl because I wouldn't have to worry about being mislabeled as the perpetrator or as a predator, right? So, there's lots of instances, or there's lots of examples that could be motivators or inhibitors to helping. If I am traveling abroad, right, and I don't necessarily know the language, then maybe I'm less likely to try to intervene because I don't want people to misinterpret my helpfulness as, just being another aggressor or trying to create a more complicated situation, right? I know if I can't speak the language and communicate my goals, right, to the people around me, that I could be seen as someone who's not trying to actually help. So similarly, you might think of, okay, well, how is socioeconomic status, an inhibitor or a motivator? Well, here's how. So if I am a rich person or a wealthy person, or just kind of a little bit well off, maybe I have good health insurance. Maybe I don't have to fear if I do get hurt, I can go to the hospital and get fixed up, and it's not going to cost me an arm and a leg to get that done, right? But if I come from maybe a more low socioeconomic status background, then maybe I don't have those resources at my disposal. Maybe I don't have good health care. Maybe I can't just go throwing myself around in front of every physical altercation or bad situation because I cannot afford to fix myself if I get broke. So you have to keep in mind some of these things and understand your own motivators and inhibitors and make informed decisions based off the situation at hand. To know, should I intervene? Should I not intervene? Should I delegate this to someone else? So now we're going to talk about the 5 steps to go from being a passive bystander, so someone who doesn't intervene, to an active bystander, or someone who does intervene. This is the step-up model. So the first step is to notice the event. So we have to be aware of our surroundings in order to be able to identify issues, right? So if we are, familiar with our environment, awesome. If we're in a new place, well, okay, pay attention to, where you can go in the event of an emergency. Okay, if something bad happens here, You know, where should I go first? Who can I get help from? Who should I help, right? Who is in your group, or is there people in your group who may need additional assistance? How am I going to know what's going on? Well, you need to just be aware. So be aware. That's the first step. Notice things around you. Because when you are aware of the things around you, like I said, you can identify problems. And that's the second step. So once you're aware and you identify something that happens as an issue, then you can make the conscious choice to take responsibility for that instance. And what that means is, you know, okay, well, I noticed a problem and I know that, you know, someone should help. I'm making the decision that that person is going to be me. So I'm going to be the person to go help that person, right? So you have to consciously choose in your head, okay, I'm going to go help. And then you have to think, okay, well, how am I going to help? So you need to decide on how you are going to assist them. Which strategy am I going to use? Am I going to walk right up to them and just say, hey, stop this? Or am I going to cause a distraction and get the perpetrator's, you know, attention elsewhere? And then I'm going to go help the victim or perceived victim. So you need to decide on the strategy you're going to use to help. And then after all of those 4 steps are done, you actually have to implement the help. So you have to take action. You have to actually intervene. So you're always going to be a passive bystander if you go through steps 1 through 4. You have to actually act to assist. So, you know, going from passive to active. And we're going to get into the specific strategies. You might be saying, okay, well, like decide on the intervention strategies. Okay, well, what are those? We're going to get into that right now. So before we get into that, though, we are going to watch a very brief video. And just so you know, this video does include sexual violence. So it does not like depict the sexual violence, but it kind of shows everything up until the point where a sexually violent act would occur. And so I'll pause it here once the video completes. All right, y'all. So, if you watch that video, you're probably a little frustrated because there were numerous instances where someone could have provided assistance to that woman before, she made it all the way at home with that man who would sexually assault her. So, it's very important that we do take action when we see opportunity to assist. And that's why being aware is really important. Because if you're just kind of going through life very passive, you may not notice when stuff like that occurs. So I know that we're kind of winding down on time, so I want to make sure I get through these 5 Ds, and then we'll kind of go back to the video and debrief a little bit. So the 5 Ds, right on the screen here for you, essentially are really good strategies for you to use to intervene. The first strategy is direct. So the direct intervention is basically the same as confrontation, right? Going straight in, addressing the instance that's happening, saying like, hey, this is not okay, stop this, or being more direct in a kind of more physical way if deemed appropriate. I'm not gonna, advocate for any of y'all to go put yourself in physical danger, but there may be, situations in the future where you make the decision to intervene physically if it is necessary. If you are not about direct confrontation, that's okay. There are lots of different ways that you can assist. So distract is, if you strike up a conversation about something random with the perpetrator or even the perceived victim to make something stop, right? Or spilling your drink on someone at a party who's maybe preying on someone who has had a little bit too much to drink. Or stepping on their shoe and being like, oh, I'm so sorry, man. Like, I don't know, like I wasn't paying attention, blah, blah, blah. Like you might be like, okay, well, like what's the point of that? Well, if any time that you cause a distraction, you get in the way of someone like doing harm onto another person, you have the opportunity to provide that victim or the perceived victim enough time to get out of the situation. Or if you have someone with you, one person can distract and then the other person can go up to the survivor or the victim or the perceived victim and get them out of that situation, right? So just causing a distraction is all about giving more time to another person so they can get away, or to just do something kind of outlandish to make the harm stop. After this video, we'll watch a very brief video. It's just about 45 seconds long, and you'll get to see a really good example of distraction. Next is delegate. So you can always ask a friend who maybe has a little bit more experience intervening or helping others, or feels more confident, or you could delegate the situation to a person in power. So it could be a police officer, a security guard, your boss, a professor, a TA, basically any person who is maybe a little bit higher up on the food chain than you, or who has a little bit more power or confidence to intervene. Now, the delayed approach is when you can't take action in the moment, you can actually still make a difference afterwards by checking in on the person who was harmed. So saying, hey, are you okay? Do you want me to call someone for you? Do you want me to call the police? How can I help, right? Asking that person, what can I do for you? Because you don't just want to assume. And the last strategy is document. So if someone's already helping the person, or if it's really unsafe and you can't intervene, what you can do is you can take video or photos of the incident occurring, and then you can provide that to the victim or to the authorities after the incident has occurred. Now, obviously that's not the ideal approach because you want to try to reduce the harm, but in those instances where you cannot reduce the harm safely, then document is an appropriate strategy. So with all that said, we're going to go back and watch a little bit different video. And afterwards, I hope a couple of you can tell me in the chat which of the 5 Ds you noticed.
Emily? Thanks for bringing her home. Where are you staying tonight?
I was just going to stay here.
Sweet, I'll get your blanket for the couch.
right here. You okay? Give me a taxi?
Hi guys, what can I get you?
2 double rum and coke and 2 shots of vodka.
Sure. So how's your night?
Yeah, I'm alright.
All right. Who are you here with?
We're at MCA.
There? Sorry. Excuse me.
You okay? Yeah. Thanks, mate. See ya. Ian, I'm gonna go home. You gonna go home? Yeah? Yeah. Yeah, you okay? Alright. Yeah. See you, mate.
All right, and I know we are over time, so if you do need to head out, then that's okay. But if you do want to stick around for a few more minutes, then we'll get into some additional content. I do want to take a look at the chat to see if any of y'all did point out any of the 5Ds that you noticed. So if you haven't right now, then go ahead and do so now. Put the 5Ds in chat. Okay, yeah. So it's direct, distract. I'm going to type it in chat as well. Delegate, delay, and document. So I'll just kind of give you examples, and if you want to start typing in the chat, you totally can. But so I'll start with the roommate. Okay, so when we did the rewind, that was the first person that it showed. So the roommate was like, "Hey, are you staying over?" And he just kind of like started grumbling to her, and she was like, "Oh, okay, well, I'm gonna go ahead and get you a blanket. You can sleep on the couch." So that was a distraction. So, while she did directly talk to the perceived perpetrator in the situation, she caused a distraction because she was like, all right, well, how about you do this instead? And he was like, okay. And then she went to go get the blanket and he left. So, right, he was not going to get what he wanted. So he was like, all right, peace, I'm out. So that was a very, very simple way that, she prevented that person from being assaulted, right? Hey, go sleep on the couch. Let's see, would you say that sometimes they intertwine? Yeah, so I definitely think that sometimes they do intertwine, right? You could directly confront a person, but then kind of do some sort of a distraction or lie to them about something to get them to stop doing whatever they're doing. So once you directly intervene, you could definitely pair that intervention strategy with other ones. Another example would be, let's see, the bouncer, right? So the two gentlemen who are standing in line trying to get into the club, they see, this girl who kind of looks a little bit blacked out, just being pulled by them. And they're like, hey, that kind of looks weird. Hey, is she all right? And then the bouncer's like, wait here. And he went over, he directly intervened, right? He pulled the person right off of her and said, get out of here. Now, he did go and put her in a cab, which I don't recommend. You don't want to put a drunk person alone in a cab or an Uber or a Lyft or whatever ride-sharing service you prefer. Don't put a drunk person alone because you don't know, you can't really assure that they're going to go home or that the person who is the driver won't also do something inappropriate because they have a drunk passenger, right? Those instances are small, but they are documented, so it does occur. So I wouldn't recommend putting a person in a cab by themselves if they're drunk and unable to make conscious decisions for themselves. Let's see, the bartender who got the friend's attention, absolutely, he delegated the situation. So he did talk to the victim, or to the perceived victim, so it was kind of direct as well, right? Again, that's that kind of the intertwining of those strategies. He was like, hey, are you good? So remember the ambiguity piece, resolving ambiguity? He was like, all right, maybe these two people are a couple. But then he was like, oh, well, she looks kind of really drunk, right? He's a bartender. He knows when people look, blacked out or whatever. So he was like, oh, who are you here with? And she kind of said something like unintelligible. You couldn't really hear it. He asked about her friends, and she's kind of mumbling names and kind of points like this over to her friend. And so he was like, hey, can you come check on her? And, her friend came in, and her friend realized that she was clearly blacked out and needed to get her out of there. And so she did. And then lastly, the friend, right? The friend who she came there with, she saw her and that guy, and she's like, oh, something kind of seems off. And she had this very blacked out look on her face. So she, used her best judgment. She was aware, right? She identified it as a potential problem, and she was like, all right, I'm going to go help this person. And so what she did was she just directly, went in there and then got her out of the situation, which is a great thing to do. Yes. So that is that video. Now, if you do want to stick around for this video, it's very short. We're just about done with the training, so it'll probably just be a few minutes if you do want to hang in there. I do appreciate your patience.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
Go ahead.
On your merry way.
Don't fucking follow me, stupid dick. No, you. No, you. Don't hit her. Don't follow me, stupid son of a bitch. Do not follow me. No, please sit down. No. This is not happening. You're not gonna hit a woman. Not
Well, she hit
follow
me already so many times.
Okay, do not follow me. Okay, ma'am. No. You need to stop following me. So get on another car. When this train stops, do not follow me anymore. Do not follow me. Okay, she's told me. Follow me.
We got you on camera. Don't follow.
Do not follow me.
We got you.
When we stop again, get off. Okay, do not follow me. Please get off.
All right. So what did we notice in that video? There were three of the 5Ds were used here. So obviously, since we have this video, we know that it was documented. So the gentleman who's sitting down on the train, he documented the incident, right? He's like, we got you on camera. And, good thing about him putting this on camera is now that we have an opportunity to look at it from an educational lens, right? So documenting can be very, very helpful. Additionally, you've got this gentleman here who is Snack Man, right? What did he do right here? He just got right in the way. Look at that. She's about to swing on him again.
Would that be distract?
Yes, absolutely. Perfect. So he calls it distraction. Snack Man got in the way. He's eating his Pringles or whatever, snack pack. And, what happened, right? Right over here, you see lots of kicking, pushing, all of this. Maybe it's a little bit unclear right now who the aggressor is. So rather than directly intervene and put his hands on somebody and, get them out of the way, he just steps right in the middle of them, and the physical altercation immediately stops. So by simply standing in the way, they're like, well, I'm not going to hit this guy. He's not the person I'm mad at. And the altercation stops. right? And then you have this other woman who comes in and she's saying, this is the direct approach. She's like, hey, you need to stop. You need to stop following her. You need to get off on the next train. What you're doing, it's not okay. Stop following her. You're not going to put your hands on a woman. And, he's saying, well, she's already kicked me a bunch of times. And, it is kind of unclear who is the aggressor when we first start the video, right? The first thing we see is her pushing him into the door and kicking, like crazy. But as we watched, right, and listened, we were able to resolve ambiguity because we found out, okay, well, more likely than not, this man is following her, right? He's followed her onto this train. She's clearly not about it. And so, those are some really good examples of direct, distract, and document. So if you want to stick around, we can do a couple scenarios, but if you are unable to stay any longer, then I really do thank you for all of your time and for learning a little bit about bystander intervention. With that said, we're going to go ahead and start the scenarios. So what I'll do is I'll read it out loud, and then if you'd like to tell me verbally or in the chat what issues you think are either ambiguous, maybe there's nothing that's ambiguous, or which of the 5 Ds is most appropriate for this situation. All right, so you're in Wynwood at Brick. You're there with a few classmates after a long week of homework and exams. One of your classmates let loose and is on her 5th drink of the night. You saw her stumble a few times while dancing with some people that you don't know. One of the men dancing near her grabs her arm and starts to pull her through the crowd and out of your sight. It looks like she tries to pull her hand away at first, but she proceeds to stumble through the crowd with the man towards the exit. So what would you do in this situation?
I would run after her or try to call someone who seems more strong than me or like more athletic to try to help me run after them so they can catch the guy before he leaves with her.
Right. So you would either employ the direct approach. So you'd run after and try to stop, this man from pulling her away, or maybe you'd enlist the help of others around you to do that, to kind of collectively do a direct approach. So you're also delegating, right? You could delegate it to another person in your group who's maybe a little bit more comfortable running after the person who's pulling her away, or you could delegate it to a bouncer or a security officer nearby, saying, hey, I'm here with my friend and this guy just pulled her away, right? That is top of the notch, the perfect strategy to use in this instance. So delegate it to a bouncer or a security figure, or definitely run after them with yourself and with friends. Next scenario. You're spending some time with friends and they're talking about a party that they went to last week. One of the guys says that he hooked up with someone that night, but he doesn't really remember much. He goes on to say that he fed her drinks all night long and that she was blacked out for sure and was a boring lay because she was so out of it. He says that he'll show you how easy it is to pick people up and just get them wasted. This weekend when you all go out to the next party. So what would you do in this situation? If someone said
if I can say something, I'm sorry. I think that's a scenario for males that I'd like to see their perspective, because I'm sure that a female would never say something like that. I don't want to put the gender gap or whatever, but this sounds like something the guy told to another guy. So I don't know, I'm curious.
Yeah, I'd be curious for any male perspectives who maybe have had experience having this difficult conversation. But yeah, to your point, I do agree. It's a little bit of a heteronormative scenario.
I think maybe distract, ensure that he doesn't interact with anyone, or just in case, or maybe delay, if he does interact with someone, then he goes after and asks the girl, are you okay? Blah, 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 says something.
Yeah, so I mean, you could definitely try to cause a distraction, right? You know, maybe at the next party with that friend, you could cause a distraction anytime, you know, they are trying to pick someone up or trying to, you know, pour them drinks or, you know, purposefully get them drunk in order to, you know, sleep with them. You could cause a distraction every time. But I think that it isn't the best the best strategy to employ because you know, what happens when you're not there, right? If you're not there next time to cause a distraction for every person, then that behavior doesn't necessarily stop. And I believe
Yeah. I think it's better to be more direct, in my opinion. But like, as she's, I think it was Melissa. I think it's sometimes men. I don't want to generalize, but sometimes men know what their friends do, and they don't really do anything about it. But the greatest situation is to be like direct with them. It's like, don't do this. Like, you should be better than this. And that's what I perceive it to be.
Yeah, so I think just before I get respond to your comment, I think the other one it was mentioned was like delegate. So you, or no, it was delay. Sorry, it was delayed approach. So taking the delayed approach. So you know, after the person has had an interaction with presumably a woman, you know, you could check in with her and say, okay, well, hey, are you okay? Did he like bug you? Is, you know, is he kind of being a bad guy? Whatever. You could do that, but I think the issue there is, again, remember that the delayed approach doesn't always, it's not really reducing the harm, right? You might help that person afterwards, but you didn't stop something from happening to that person that was perhaps avoidable. I'm not sure who the last voice was because it didn't like pop up your name. But yes, I would agree that doing a direct approach is the most appropriate for this situation. And it may be easier for some people than not to have these types of difficult conversations with a male friend or with any type of friend, right? This perspective of getting people drunk to hook up with them is not, you know, specifically tied to one sex or the other, one gender or the other, right? People often use alcohol to kind of loosen people up to their sexual advances. And there's a great danger in that. And I think that that's the important thing to address in this situation with your friend, right? I would say, hey man, I understand that like maybe this is how people have taught you to do these things or how you've always done it, but do you hear yourself kind of say some of these things? You're clearly taking advantage of people who are not able to make decisions for themselves, right? If you're kind of preying on women who are, you know, super drunk, they're blacked out. What kind of a person does that make you? You know, think about the danger of the decisions you're making, and not only the risk to yourself, right? Being labeled a predator, you know, being held accountable by either a school or the police, but also like the harm you're doing onto another person. So try to get them to see the other perspective. Try to generate some empathy for them, right? Help them understand the other people's perspectives. Empathy, I think, is very important in understanding, you know, why we shouldn't harm people. So you may want to have a little bit more of a robust conversation with your friend if these are the things that you're hearing from them, because it's clear that there is a definite misunderstanding of how you know, these kind of healthy sexual behaviors should be going. And I would say, if I had a friend like this, I'd be like, listen, man, that is some really destructive ideas you have about women and about hooking up and sex in general, right? So yeah, direct would definitely be the best approach. Now, in the longer version, we do have more scenarios that we kind of get into, and we would normally break out up into groups, but we're already over time. So I just wanted to leave y'all with some resources. You know, we have a lot of different resources at FIU. If you've never heard of my office, the Dean of Students Office, also known as Panthers Care, we assist students in distress. We assist students in crisis. We help connect them to different resources on campus and off campus. So if you ever do need assistance, please reach out to my office. Via email, we're available at DOS, that's Dean of Students, so DOS@fiu.edu, or you can just go to pantherscare.fiu.edu and use our referral form. You can either refer a friend or yourself. And it's a really good tool to get you assistance. It's also confidential, right? So when you submit that form, only my team is seeing it. So, your professors aren't going to know unless you specifically ask us to reach out to your professors regarding a concern you're having with them. And if you ever don't know where to get assistance, and you don't want to come to our office, you can use our online tool called the Resource Navigator. And I'm going to type that link in the chat, but there's 2 ways to remember it. So if you're looking for care, go to care.fiu.edu. And if you're looking where to go, right, where do I go? It's also where do I go.fiu.edu. So both of those links will send you to the same place. If you ever don't know where to go, just go to those websites, type in your concern. It's going to pop up the best resource available to you, depending on your concern. So I hope that that's a helpful tool for y'all. I hope y'all learned some, intervention strategies today, and I hope y'all have a nice weekend. So with that, I'll leave my information here. Oh, well, that slide's missing. But again, pantherscare@fiu.edu. Follow us on Instagram, FIU Panthers Care. And if you ever want to reach out to me or you have questions about this presentation, you can email me at jrburns@fiu.edu. It's there in the chat. Thank you so much, and y'all have a good one.
Good one to you too, sir.
Wait, excuse me?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay. I have to do like an SLS assignment where I have to attend engagements.